What you guys know about Harper, bro? I'm just playing. I had to pull the Keenan intro because he's always starting off his YouTube videos with some random song that always gets him demonetized. So I figured I would join him in that. But anyways, we are finally back. I know it's been a while since I've done any YouTube videos, but truth be told, I was so stressed about my cat having her medical issues. I was at the vet, I think 6 times in 2 weeks, guys, okay? I think we spent over $3,500 on our cat, okay? Not even joking. It was ridiculous. So lots of stress, to say the least. Thank God we had insurance, so we got reimbursed a lot, but still, it was not fun. And it was all like happening right before we were planning on doing a really big trip to go visit Ella's family. So let's just say lots of stress. Barely able to even focus on doing content. But we are back. Here we are. And we got legs today. So it's an anterior focused leg day. So we're going to go in, have a good session, and then I am going to come back to the car, and on the way home, we're going to yap a little bit because there's a few things that I feel like are worth talking about a little bit. First one, mainly being insulin sensitivity, because this is something that a lot of people talk about. And I think some of the things being talked about are the things that matter the least when it comes to insulin sensitivity, and the things that are not being talked about are the things that actually matter the most, which in a lot of cases is kind of how the social media thing works. People just tend to fixate on the wrong things and just ignore the things that matter the most. But anyways, we'll get to that and some of the other stuff a little bit later, but for now, let's go have a good session. I need a good leg day.
Do me like a flower, give me all your power, make my dream come true. Tell me that I'll be your baby, release all my envy, now I'm so happy. It's a magical way.
So that wraps up the session. That was actually a really, really good leg day today. But anyways, now that we are done, I wanted to chat with you guys a little bit on the way home because it's a 30-minute drive, right? So might as well take advantage of the time and discuss a few different topics that I think are important to talk about. First one, as I mentioned, pretty sure in the beginning of this video, is insulin sensitivity. And the reason I want to talk about it is because a lot of different new videos are coming out, and there's a bunch of people who seem I'm not saying all of them have bad intentions. Some of them probably do have good intentions, but seem to be focusing on the wrong aspects of like what's important. And I'm not saying that these things have no value, that like the things that they're talking about, but they seem to be fixating on the wrong things, because there are aspects to the whole insulin sensitivity, game that I think people should be very much aware of, that are going to make like the largest impact on how insulin sensitive they are. And I just don't see enough people just like that are talking about this. And the truth is, what makes you the most insulin sensitive you're going to be is being lean. Being lean itself is the main driver as to whether or not you are insulin sensitive. The other things that you hear people talking about, meal timing, meal frequency, digestion walks, these things make a very small impact on your overall ability to be insulin sensitive. insulin resistance mainly comes from obesity. And also, obviously, if you have diabetes, that's another factor. But for this purpose, we're talking about obesity. So now that we understand that, I think we need to understand what insulin sensitivity is. And it's pretty simple. It's your cell's ability to utilize glucose for energy. Now, when you're overweight, obese, you tend to have this fatty buildup around the insulin receptor itself that basically inhibits the cellular signaling process needed to send the GLUT4 vesicle, which is responsible for going and collecting glucose and bringing it from the outside of the cell membrane into the cell itself. And when that cellular signaling is obviously impacted and inhibited, we don't have that happen as often as we should. So, as a result, we are less efficient at using glucose for energy. And as we get leaner, that stops being as big of an issue, right? So it's pretty simple. And this is why I have a big issue with how people have been talking about it, because it's not like rocket science to understand being leaner is going to make you more optimal in terms of being able to grow and being able to function. Now, obviously, there's a diminishing returns benefit of being lean. You know, going from like 10% to 7% probably isn't going to make a big impact on your ability to grow. If anything, there could be arguments to like being against being that lean, but I'm not going to get into that for this video. Now that we covered that, I can finally move past that because I think that conversation, we've had this conversation like 2 years ago, by the way. That's why I don't even want to freaking go back through it all. It's just repeating history. But now that we've got past that, the other thing that I really wanted to talk about that I think it's starting to be talked about more, and I think Keenan's the one who really started bringing this up, but I think it's really important to discuss the psychology side of like building muscle, right? The discipline, motivation, and the way that you react to certain external changes in your environment and how quickly it takes you to go from baseline, below your baseline and then back to your baseline or higher. These things that don't get talked enough about, the behavioral changes that are needed to actually succeed, I think are very, very important to discuss. So for that reason, I kind of wanted to give you guys some insight into stuff that I deal with, because I have people all the time asking me, like, how do I deal with ADHD? How do I do all this? And to be honest, I don't have it all figured out, okay? Like, ADHD is something that I tried to pretend I didn't have for the majority of my life, mainly because when I was younger, I was talking to a psychiatrist, because I was having trouble, and my psychiatrist definitely thought I had ADHD. But the problem is, Adderall and Ritalin at that time were seen, and they still are, there was a large stigma around them. So my parents were not really on board with the getting me tested, getting me medicated, stuff like that. So I just never got it. And as a result, I just thought there was something wrong with me my entire life, right? Like I could cram pretty well for like studying, but like getting things done, I was such a bad procrastinator. And like I tried everything. I tried organizers, I tried planners, I tried all these different apps to try to help me, and none of them worked. And I thought there was something wrong with me until I actually started doing research, right? I realized I don't want to say very, very recently, but semi-recently, it's like I spent all this time researching about muscle physiology. Why not ever looking into psychology, right? Looking into some of the stuff that relates to me and stuff that I struggle with. And I finally started doing that and learning more about like, one of the things that I was like looking into is like keeping my inertia. And what that means is when you have ADHD, you have fixations, right? You have times and moments where you're super, super active. You're super, like you're super busy in like work mode, right? Like you're just hyper fixated on just doing tasks. And when you have that inertia, it's very, very important to not let anything slow you down. So anything that could hinder your inertia from continuing to push you forward, you need to avoid at all costs. For example, like when I get home and I'm doing work, I try not to take my shoes off and go to the couch at all, because I know that if I do that, I'm less likely to actually work. So as a result, when I'm doing my stuff, I'm in my shoes, I'm at my desk, I'm not sitting very often, I'm usually standing up, walking around, pacing, messaging clients, talking, and that's how I have been like keeping my inertia. I'm just not letting myself really rest until I've gotten my tasks done. And yes, my tasks get done sporadically. Like it's really stupid annoying, but it's like, you tend to bounce between different things. But at the same time, it has helped tremendously with all kinds of things regarding my health, my organization, and just overall like taking care of myself. It's just helped tremendously. So I encourage more and more people to like look into some of the psychology behind why they do the things that they do, right? Because for people with ADHD, I think it's really important to know why the hell you do things in the way that you do, right? Understand how you think and how you operate. That way ADHD isn't a hindrance to your ability. It's something that you can utilize, right? It's just a different way of organizing things and organizing tasks. So I think once you start to understand the psychology behind it, it becomes a little bit more manageable. But also, I think people forget just how much our psychology drives our success and failure, right? Like the whole saying is like, if you don't believe in yourself, why would anyone believe in you, right? Like that mindset. Because I think people get it in their heads like that they can't do things because they're limited by X, Y, and Z. And sometimes there are limitations. Truthfully, there are limitations that are going to be in your way, right? You can't become Chris Bumstead just because you tell yourself, I will succeed. But you have no idea what you are capable of until you truly put some energy and effort into it, right? Because your subjective lens and your ability to actually be as critical as you can with yourself is not as objective as you think, right? Most people are not, like, honestly, nobody is purely objective with the way they look at themselves. But you might be able to look at somebody else and be a lot more objective looking at them than looking at yourself. And that's the issue, right? If you can't be as objective with yourself as you are with others, then you're never really going to succeed, right? Like if you can't really be able to distinguish issues, like for example, let's say you're dieting and you're really, really hungry. Is it real hunger? Is it boredom, right? Being able to distinguish things like that will help you tremendously in your actions. What do you do as a result of these feelings? What do you do as a result of these thoughts? And start to be more objective in that way, right? And I think a lot of people struggle with that, struggling to be able to distinguish between the voices of subjectiveness and objectiveness. So learning more about that kind of stuff and being more aware, self-aware of how you do things is so underrated, such an underrated topic to really look into. So I encourage you guys, I implore you to be more mindful of what you think, what you say, and be able to critically counter some of your own thoughts, right? If you're, like, again, if you feel hungry and it's not real hunger, don't give in to cravings. Recognize what real hunger is versus what boredom is. And if you're hungry, yeah, it sucks, but that doesn't mean you have to immediately act upon it, right? You do not need to immediately act upon hunger. Everyone is going to be hungry at some point in their life, and that's okay, okay? But it doesn't mean that you should just ignore hunger completely and not make potentially any changes, because if you're always hungry, right, no matter what you do, and you're like 25% body fat, you might need to be adjusting your diet. But nonetheless, learn to be less reactive. Learn to take a second, pause, think about what you are going to do based on the thoughts that you have, and then you can act. But do not act before you really think, because that's what most people end up doing with, well, everything. So either way, I hope that was semi-insightful. I'm not pretending to be an expert in psychology, but it is definitely something I think more people need to start getting into learning more about. But yeah, I guess other than that, that's really all I got besides, oh, that is one thing. I completely forgot this. For the love of God, I'm begging you, I'm begging all of you, please do not forget to wear deodorant or shower or take care of yourself in any way possible to make yourself not smell like absolute ass. Because the amount of times recently that I have been going into the gym, I just smell people's aura. And I say aura because they're not even there anymore, and I smell them. That's how bad some people's musk has become. And maybe it's because I've become fixated on fragrances recently, and I'm like, you know, so used to like scents that smell really good, and then I go to an environment where that's not the case. But I don't know. I feel like people's like cleanliness and habits around, you know, taking care of themselves has diminished drastically. So if that's you, I'm not trying to shame you or make fun of you, but please be more aware that other people are going to smell you, right? And even if you can't smell it on yourself, which I know there's like, I forgot there was a paper that like assessed like people's own subjective ability to sense their own like smell. It was way off. But even if that's like the case, just assume you don't smell good and make sure you go out of your way to make yourself smell good. Now, that also doesn't mean spray yourself with the most strong fragrance known to man. I use like really like clean, fresh smelling colognes and fresh smelling deodorants when I go to the gym, because I'm not trying to absolutely, annihilate your nostrils. For example, let me see. Oh, I left it in the back. Damn. I was gonna say my backpack's usually right here, the one that I carry my stuff in, but I use, I'll throw it up on the screen. This is just the one that I use after gym, and then before gym I'll throw on one of my slightly nicer ones. That way I'm not smelling like absolute butt when I'm going out of the gym or when I'm going into the gym, because again, I am self-aware as much as I possibly can be with how I smell to other people. And then obviously deodorant. Bring deodorant with you in a bag. That way, even if you do forget, guess what? You have deodorant in your bag. See how crazy that is? It's not hard. But anyways, now I'm officially done. And this is the end of the video. So thank you guys for watching. I will try really, really hard to get back on track. I'm planning on going to my special gym every other session. So if I do a upper day, every other upper day I'm going there. Every other lower day I'm going there. And when I try to go there, I'll try to film as much as I can. That way I get back in the habit of doing more YouTube videos. But overall, that's all I got. And that's the end of the video. So see you next time. Peace.